The second Marcus stepped into my living room in Chicago, standing beside my daughter Emily with that easy smile, a forbidden spark ignited deep inside me that no woman had ever lit. In that single heartbeat, the straight life I'd forced myself to live for 20 years started cracking wide open. I was Derek Thompson, 44 years old, a successful real estate broker with a corner office downtown and a house in Lincoln Park that my conservative Texas parents still bragged about to their church group. After my divorce from Sarah 10 years ago, I had raised Emily alone, making sure she never lacked for anything while quietly burying every feeling that didn't fit the picture of the perfect son, brother, and father they demanded. My weekends were filled with family calls where Mom would ask when I was going to find a nice woman and settle down again, and Dad would remind me that a real man provided stability, not questions. Emily, 22 and freshly graduated from Northwestern, had invited Marcus home for dinner as a thank you for the mentorship that helped her land her first marketing job. He was 32, an architect with a gentle voice and eyes that seemed to see straight through the careful mask I wore every day. "Mr. Thompson, it's great to meet you," he said, extending his hand. The moment our palms touched, warmth spread up my arm like a current I hadn't felt since college, when I'd convinced myself those feelings were just confusion. I pulled back too quickly, forcing a smile. "Call me Derek, please. Emily's told me so much about how you guided her through that tough internship year." We sat down to lasagna and salad, Emily chattering about work, while Emily laughed at Marcus's stories about building sustainable housing in the city. I nodded at all the right places, but my mind was racing. This man beside my daughter was making me question everything I had sacrificed to keep my family happy. After dinner, when Emily stepped out to take a call, I found myself alone with him in the kitchen. "She really looks up to you," I said, rinsing plates to avoid his eyes. Marcus leaned against the counter, his presence filling the small space. "Emily's smart and driven. But you raised her well, Derek. That kind of stability isn't easy to give." His words hit harder than they should have. Stability. That was the word my parents drilled into me after I came home from my freshman year at the University of Illinois, hinting at doubts about who I was. I had buried it all, married Sarah, had Emily, and built the life they approved of. Now here was this stranger making the walls feel thin. We said goodnight at the door, and I watched him walk down the steps with Emily waving. Alone in the quiet house, I poured a glass of scotch and stared at the family photos on the mantel. Every image showed the man I had pretended to be. That night sleep wouldn't come. I kept seeing Marcus's smile, the way his hand had felt steady and warm. By morning, I told myself it was nothing, just exhaustion from a long week at the office. Emily texted that Marcus might stop by again to help with her portfolio. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, but my stomach twisted. This was dangerous territory. I had lived by the rules for so long. Falling for the man beside my daughter wasn't part of the plan. Yet as I drove to work that morning, the city skyline blurring past, I couldn't shake the feeling that my carefully constructed world was already starting to tilt. The next few days blurred into routine meetings with client site visits and evening calls with my parents, who were planning their annual visit from Dallas. Mom kept dropping hints about setting me up with her friend's daughter, a nice Christian girl who loved kids. I laughed it off as always, promising to think about it. Inside, though, the memory of Marcus lingered like a low hum. Emily brought him over again on Thursday for what she called a quick strategy session. They spread papers across the dining table, laughing about branding concepts while I pretended to read emails from the other room. Every time Marcus glanced up and caught my eye, I felt that same electric pull. "Derek, you should join us," Emily called out. "Marcus has great ideas for the family business too." I sat down across from them, trying to focus on the conversation, but his knee brushed mine under the table once and I nearly jumped. He apologized quickly, but the contact stayed with me long after. Later, when Emily went upstairs to grab her laptop, Marcus turned to me. "You seem like a guy who's carried a lot on his shoulders. Emily says you're the rock of this family." His voice was soft, no judgment, just observation. I swallowed hard. "Someone has to be. My parents expect it. Always have." He nodded like he understood more than I wanted him to. "Expectations can be heavy. Sometimes you have to decide if they're worth the wait." Those words hung in the air between us. For the first time in years, I felt seen not as the provider or the son, but as a man with cracks in his armor. When he left that night, I stood at the window watching his car pull away and wondered how long I could keep pretending. The weekend brought my parents' arrival. They flew in for a visit filled with church on Sunday and family dinners where Dad grilled me about dating. "You're not getting any younger, son. Emily needs a mother figure." I nodded along, smiling at the right moments while my mind drifted to Marcus's easy laugh. Emily mentioned him casually at dinner and Mom's eyebrows shot up. "A male mentor? That's unusual. Is he married?" Emily laughed it off, but I felt my pulse quicken. The lie I had lived for decades was suddenly feeling too tight around my chest. By Sunday night, after they left, I sat on the porch with a beer staring at the stars. Marcus had texted Emily about a follow-up meeting, but the message popped up on my phone too since we were now in a group chat for her project. I stared at his name on the screen. One simple reply could open doors I had nailed shut. Instead, I set the phone down and told myself tomorrow I would focus on work and family like always. But deep down I knew the crack had already started to widen and there was no going back to the way things were. Monday morning brought the usual rush of emails and client calls, but my thoughts kept circling back to Marcus. I caught myself checking the group chat more than once, hoping for a new message from him. Emily noticed my distraction at breakfast. "Dad, you okay? You seem miles away." I brushed it off with a joke about too much coffee, but inside the guilt was building. How could I be thinking about a man I barely knew when my entire life was built on being the steady one for her? That afternoon, Marcus stopped by the house unannounced to drop off some design samples for Emily's portfolio. She was still at the office, so I invited him in for coffee. We sat at the kitchen island talking about Chicago architecture, the way the city had changed since I first moved here from Texas. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine, and for the first time in years, I felt myself relaxing into the conversation. "You know, Derek, you have this quiet strength about you," he said, stirring his coffee. "It's rare. Most people I meet are loud about their ambitions, but you carry yours like it's second nature." The compliment landed soft and warm against the walls I had built. I found myself opening up about the pressure from my parents, the divorce, and how I had thrown myself into raising Emily to fill the gaps. He shared pieces of his own story growing up in a small town where being gay meant hiding until college. No details, just enough to let me know he understood the weight of secrets. When Emily finally arrived, she laughed at us, bonding over blueprints. "See, Dad, Marcus is good for you too. You need more friends like him." Her words were innocent, but they twisted something in my chest. Friends. That was safe. That was what I could handle. Yet, as the weeks passed, Marcus became a regular presence. He helped Emily with late-night revisions, joined us for weekend brunches, and even fixed the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom one Saturday when I was struggling with it. Each visit chipped away at my resolve. One evening after Emily went to bed, we ended up on the back deck sharing a bottle of wine. The city lights twinkled below, and Marcus told me about losing his first love to family disapproval. "It taught me that pretending only hurts everyone in the end," he said quietly. I wanted to tell him then that I knew exactly what he meant, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I changed the subject to Lily know Emily's new job, and we laughed about her determination. But later, alone in my room, I replayed every word, every glance. The attraction wasn't fading. It was growing roots. My parents called the next day with news of a family reunion in Dallas. "Bring a date, son. Show us you're moving forward." I agreed vaguely, but the pressure sat heavy on my shoulders. That night, I dreamed of Marcus's hand on mine and woke up sweating. The denial I had perfected for decades was starting to feel like a cage. Emily noticed the change too. "Dad, you've been smiling more lately. Is it the new project or something else?" I told her it was work, but the lie tasted bitter. Marcus texted me directly for the first time asking if I wanted to join them for a gallery opening downtown. "Emily thought you'd enjoy the architecture exhibits." I hesitated, then said yes. Standing in the crowded gallery beside him, listening to him explain light and structure, I felt alive in a way I hadn't since before Emily was born. His shoulder brushed mine, and neither of us moved away. Back home that night, the house felt emptier than ever. I sat on Emily's old bed looking at photos of us as a family and wondered what my parents would say if they knew the truth simmering beneath the surface. Marcus was becoming more than the man beside my daughter. He was becoming the mirror I couldn't look away from. The internal battle raged on. Part of me wanted to push him away to protect the life I had built. The other part, the one I had silenced for so long, was starting to whisper that maybe it was time to listen. The following month brought more shared moments. We coached Emily through a big presentation together, staying up late with takeout and coffee. Marcus's calm presence made the stress bearable, and I found myself leaning on him more than I should. One rainy afternoon, when Emily was stuck in traffic, he and I ended up alone in the living room talking about regrets. I always thought if I did everything right for my family, the emptiness would go away, I admitted. He looked at me with those understanding eyes. Emptiness like that doesn't vanish, Derek. It waits for you to face it. His words echoed in my head for days. Family pressure mounted when my sister called from Texas announcing her engagement and hinting that I should follow suit. Mom's worried about you being alone forever. I hung up and immediately texted Marcus asking if he wanted to grab a beer after work. We met at a quiet bar near the lake. Conversation flowed easily from work to books to the way Chicago winters tested your soul. When he asked about my marriage, I surprised myself by telling the truth. I loved Sarah in my own way, but it was never the kind of love that lights you up inside. He nodded slowly. Sounds like you were living for everyone but yourself. The bar lights reflected in his eyes, and for a moment I let myself imagine what it would feel like to reach across the table. Instead, I paid the bill and drove home with my heart pounding. Emily started noticing the extra time I spent with Marcus. You two are becoming real friends, huh? She teased one morning. I smiled, but the guilt gnawed at me. Was I betraying her trust by wanting more? The misunderstanding hit when she asked if I thought Marcus was dating anyone. I froze. I don't know, honey. Inside I was screaming that I hoped he wasn't, because the thought of him with someone else twisted like a knife. That night I lay awake replaying every conversation, every shared laugh. The man beside my daughter had become the center of my quiet revolution. Family expectations still loomed large, but for the first time the pull toward honesty felt stronger than the fear of letting them down. I didn't know where this path would lead, but I knew I couldn't keep walking the old one forever. The tension built slowly at first, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Emily's big project launch party was approaching, and Marcus offered to help with the final touches at our house. We spent hours in the dining room, spread out with mood boards and color samples. His sleeve rolled up, revealing a simple tattoo on his forearm, and I found myself staring longer than I should. You seem distracted tonight, Derek, he said softly when Emily stepped out for a call. I met his gaze, and the words tumbled out before I could stop them. Being around you makes me question things I thought were settled. He didn't pull away. Instead, he set down the marker and listened. I told him about the college crush I had buried, the years of dating women to please my parents, and the fear that coming out would shatter Emily's world and my family's approval. He shared his own journey, coming out at 25 and losing touch with his parents for 2 years before they slowly rebuilt. It hurt, but living a lie hurt more, he said. That conversation cracked me open. For the first time, I admitted out loud that I had feelings for him, feelings that went beyond friendship. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. I'm not going anywhere, Derek. We can figure this out together. The relief was immediate, but so was the panic. What if Emily walked in? What if my parents found out? The next day, family pressure hit hard. My father called to say they were extending their visit and bringing my aunt, who had just the right woman, for me to meet at the reunion. I agreed to the dinner out of habit, but inside I was crumbling. Marcus and I met secretly at a small cafe near his office that weekend. We talked for hours about everything from childhood dreams to what a future might look like if I stopped pretending. His hand found mine under the table, and this time I didn't let go. The warmth was everything I had denied myself. Back home, Emily asked why I seemed lighter. Work stuff. I lied again, but the guilt was starting to mix with hope. The misunderstanding came when she saw us leaving the cafe together from across the street. Later that evening, she confronted me in the kitchen. "Dad, are you and Marcus spending a lot of time together? Like more than just helping me?" Her tone was curious, not accusatory, but my heart raced. I deflected with a joke about networking, but the look in her eyes told me she suspected something. That night, I paced the house, torn between the joy of finally being seen by Marcus and the terror of losing my daughter's respect. Family expectations felt like chains tightening around my chest. My mother texted photos of the woman she wanted me to meet, and I stared at them, feeling nothing but emptiness. Marcus called later, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we face it together. You're not alone anymore." His words gave me courage, but the internal war raged on. I almost called him back to say we should slow down to protect Emily, but the thought of losing this connection hurt worse than any family disapproval. The climax of my denial hit when I agreed to the family dinner. Sitting across from the nice woman my aunt brought, I felt like an actor in a play I no longer believed in. Marcus texted me during the meal, "Just a simple thinking of you." That small message gave me the strength to excuse myself early and drive straight to his apartment. When he opened the door, I didn't hesitate. We talked until dawn about the risks, the fears, and the possibility of something real. By morning, I knew I was falling hard. The man beside my daughter had become my anchor, and I was done pretending the storm wasn't coming. The week after that conversation, everything accelerated. Emily's launch party was a success, and Marcus was there as her mentor, looking sharp in a dark suit. I watched him from across the room, my heart swelling with pride for her and something deeper for him. When we stole a moment alone on the balcony overlooking the river, he pulled me close for a quick hug. "You look like you're carrying the world again," he whispered. I wanted to tell him everything, but guests were nearby, so I just held on a second longer. The family reunion loomed, and my parents arrived with suitcases and expectations. Dinner at their hotel turned into an interrogation. "When are you going to introduce us to someone special, Derek?" Dad asked. I mumbled about work, being busy, but Mom wasn't convinced. "That Marcus fellow, Emily mentions him a lot. Is he a good influence?" The question hung heavy. I defended him as a friend, but the lie burned. Back home, Marcus and I met in secret at a park near the lake. We walked the path, talking about coming out to Emily and how to handle my parents. His support was unwavering. "You've lived for them long enough. Now live for you." His words echoed as we sat on a bench, his shoulder against mine. That night, I almost told Emily everything, but fear stopped me. The misunderstanding deepened when she found a text from Marcus on my phone while borrowing it for a photo. "Dad, why is he calling you late?" Her voice was laced with confusion. I panicked and said it was about her project, but the damage was done. She started pulling away, spending more time at her own place. The betrayal I felt toward myself was crushing. I had let family expectations dictate my life for so long, and now the one person I was trying to protect was hurt by my secrecy. Marcus listened without judgment when I told him, "Give her time. Truth has a way of healing." But the crisis was building. My sister called, warning that Mom suspected I was acting strange. The pressure was mounting, and I felt the walls closing in. Yet every moment with Marcus reminded me why this fight was worth it. He was the light I had denied myself, and I was ready to step into it no matter the cost. The confrontation with my family came sooner than I expected. My parents showed up at the house unannounced after Emily mentioned in passing that I seemed happier lately. Mom cornered me in the kitchen while Dad paced the living room. "Is there something you're not telling us, Derek? This Marcus man keeps coming up. Are you involved with him?" The direct question hit like a punch. I froze, my carefully built facade crumbling under their stares. "Mom, Dad, it's complicated." Dad's face hardened. "Complicated? We raised you right, son. You have a daughter to think about. This isn't the life we sacrificed for." Their words echoed every fear I had buried. I tried to explain that Marcus made me feel alive, but they shut it down with scripture and disappointment. Emily walked in during the argument, her eyes wide. "What's going on?" The room fell silent. I looked at her and saw the hurt I had caused with my secrecy. Marcus arrived shortly after sensing something was wrong from my texts. He stood beside me quietly offering support without pushing. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I care about Derek and Emily. This isn't about destroying anything. It's about honesty. His calm only fueled Dad's anger. You stay out of our family business. The evening ended with my parents storming out and Emily retreating to her room in tears. I sat on the couch with Marcus, his hand on my shoulder. They'll come around or they won't. But you can't keep living for their approval. That night I barely slept. The betrayal I felt from my own family mixed with the guilt over Emily. She confronted me the next morning. Dad, I thought we told each other everything. Are you gay? Is Marcus your? Her voice broke and I pulled her into a hug. Yes, honey. I am. I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to lose you. She cried but held on. I just want you happy, Dad. Even if it's not the way Grandma and Grandpa want. Her acceptance was a lifeline, but the family fallout was just beginning. Marcus and I spent the weekend talking through the next steps. He shared stories of his own family reconciliation and encouraged me to give mine time. You've sacrificed enough, Derek. Now choose yourself. The sacrifice moment hit when my parents demanded I cut ties with Marcus or they would stop helping with Emily's student loans they still co-signed. I refused. The financial hit would be real, but the emotional freedom was worth it. Marcus stood by me through it all, his presence steady. We shared quiet evenings on the deck where words weren't needed. The man beside my daughter had become my partner in every sense that mattered. The internal crisis peaked when I realized I had to tell the rest of the extended family. The fear of rejection was real, but Marcus's love gave me strength. Emily even started defending us to her cousins. The growth was slow but real. I was no longer the man living for expectations. I was becoming the man living for truth. The weeks after the family blow-up were a whirlwind of emotions. Emily adjusted faster than I expected, inviting Marcus to dinner as an official part of our lives. He's good for you, Dad. I see it now. Her words healed something deep inside me. My parents stopped calling for a while and the silence hurt, but Marcus helped me process it during long walks along the lakefront. Grief is part of growth, he said one evening as the sun set. You're mourning the version of you they wanted. I leaned into him, feeling the weight lift. Work suffered briefly as clients noticed my distraction, but I channeled the energy into being present for Emily and Marcus. One night we cooked together in the kitchen, laughing over spilled sauce, and for the first time I felt like a family in the way I had always dreamed. The societal prejudice showed up when a neighbor made a comment at the block party about strange men visiting. I confronted it calmly for the first time in my life. He's part of my family now. The words felt powerful. Marcus was proud. The rising tension peaked when my sister visited unannounced, trying to mediate. Mom and Dad are hurting Derek. Can't you just keep this quiet for their sake? Her plea tested me. I almost wavered, remembering all the holidays and support they had given. Marcus waited in the other room, giving me space. In the end, I chose honesty. I love them, but I love myself too. And I love him. She left in tears, but the decision felt right. That night Marcus and I sat on the porch under the stars. You did it, he whispered. You chose us. The kiss we shared was soft and full of promise, no rush, just connection. Emily found us there and smiled instead of turning away. The misunderstanding with her fully resolved as she admitted her own fears of losing her dad. We talked late into the night about futures and boundaries. The man beside my daughter had helped me rebuild everything. Family expectations no longer defined me. I was free and it felt like breathing for the first time. The crisis hit its peak when my parents announced they were cutting financial ties completely unless I fixed things. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, cold and formal. Emily read it over my shoulder, her face pale. Dad, this is about your happiness, not their pride. Marcus was there cooking breakfast, his steady presence the only thing keeping me grounded. We'll figure it out together, he said simply. The sacrifice was real. I had to downsize some plans for Emily's future, but the freedom was worth every penny. We spent the day talking logistics, Marcus offering to help with budgeting using his architectural precision. The betrayal feelings surged when a distant cousin posted on social media about family values in a way that clearly targeted me. Emily defended me publicly for the first time, and Marcus held me while I processed the hurt. "You're not alone anymore," he reminded me. The confrontation with my parents came via video call. Dad's face was stern. "This isn't the son we raised." I looked straight into the camera. "No, it's the man I was always meant to be." Marcus sat beside me, silently supportive. Emily joined halfway through, adding her voice. The call ended in tears on all sides, but the lines were drawn. Afterward, the three of us sat in silence, letting the emotions settle. Marcus suggested a weekend away, just the three of us, to heal. We drove to a cabin in Wisconsin where the woods offered peace. Long talks by the fire revealed layers I had never shared. I told Marcus about the nights I cried alone after Sarah left, wondering if I would ever feel whole. He shared his fears of being the reason my family fractured. Emily listened and opened up about her own worries. The bonding was deep and healing. Back in Chicago, the societal pushback continued with whispers at work, but I faced them with new confidence. One client even congratulated me quietly, saying he wished he had my courage. The growth was tangible. I started volunteering at an LGBT youth center, with Marcus introducing Emily to the community. The man beside my daughter had become the catalyst for my entire transformation. The internal peace I felt was new and fragile but real. Family expectations had lost their power. Love had taken their place. The turning point arrived during Emily's birthday dinner. My parents surprised us by showing up uninvited, their faces softer than before. Mom hugged me first. "We don't understand it all, but we miss you, son." Dad shook Marcus's hand stiffly, but it was a start. The evening was awkward yet hopeful. Emily beamed, watching us navigate the new normal. Marcus and I stole a moment on the porch later. "See? Truth has a way of winning," he said. I pulled him close, feeling the years of hiding melt away. The sacrifice had been worth it. My family wasn't perfect, but they were trying, and that was enough for now. The misunderstanding with extended relatives faded as more people saw the happiness in my eyes. Work improved as I brought my full self to the table. Emily thrived, knowing her dad was finally free. The emotional journey had tested every part of me, but Marcus's love had carried me through. We talked about the future late into nights, plans for travel, and maybe even expanding our little family in new ways. The man beside my daughter had become my partner, my rock, and my future. The awakening was complete. I no longer lived for expectations. I lived for love. The months that followed brought a new rhythm to our lives. Emily moved into her own apartment, but visited often, bringing stories from work and checking in on us with a knowing smile. Marcus officially moved in after we talked it through, with her blessing. The house felt alive with his presence, sketches on the table and laughter in the kitchen. My parents' visits grew more frequent, though still tentative. Mom even asked Marcus for gardening advice one afternoon, a small bridge across the divide. Dad and I shared a quiet beer on the porch where he admitted, "I just want you safe, son." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was progress, and I took it. The societal prejudice lingered in subtle ways at neighborhood events, but I faced it with Marcus at my side, our hands linked openly. The internal peace I had found was solid now, no more cracks, just a steady foundation. We traveled to Michigan for a long weekend, hiking trails and talking about dreams. Marcus proposed one evening on the beach, his voice steady and full of love. "Not a big wedding, just us and the people who matter." I said yes without hesitation. Emily cried happy tears when we told her. The family expectations that once defined me were now a distant memory. I had sacrificed the old version of myself, but gained something far richer. Marcus and I built a life on honesty and respect, with Emily as our biggest supporter. The growth I experienced was profound. I volunteered more, mentored young men struggling with their identities, and even spoke at a local support group about late-blooming authenticity. The man who had appeared beside my daughter had become the love of my life and the key to my freedom. Looking back at the journey, the conflicts, the misunderstandings, and the choices, I knew every step had been worth it. Chicago's skyline still stretched before us, but now I saw it with clear eyes. The future was ours to shape. True or false? Should a man like Derek sacrifice his authentic self and the love he found with Marcus just to meet his family's expectations? Or is personal truth more important?